Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are taking a deep dive today into this book. I'm sure you've heard of Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Oh, yeah.
It's a book that has stirred up a lot of debate about personal finance.
Mm.
Um, and honestly, it makes you rethink some things.
Yeah, it definitely flips the script on traditional financial advice.
Yeah.
Kiyosaki's approach is so unique because he uses these two father figures in his life to show these contrasting perspectives,
Right.
you know?
The Rich Dad and Poor Dad.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like having two different money mentors just like battling it out in your head,
Right.
which can be so confusing at first.
Yeah.
Can you maybe walk us through who these two dads are and why their viewpoints matter so much?
Yeah, so you have poor dad who represents that traditional path,
Mm.
get a good education, find a secure job,
Yeah.
work hard, save money.
Yeah.
He values that job security above all else. And then you have rich dad who's a successful entrepreneur and he's all about financial literacy and building assets that can generate income.
Mm.
He encourages taking risks and views challenges as opportunities.
Interesting.
And Kiyosaki actually learned from both of them,
Wow.
which is what makes this book so intriguing.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the contrast here. But wouldn't you say that most people already know that education and a stable job are important? Like, what's so groundbreaking about Rich Dad's approach?
You're right. Poor Dad's advice isn't necessarily wrong, but Rich Dad really wants us to, think beyond just earning a paycheck.
Right.
He hammers home the idea that financial literacy is the real key to building wealth.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about how much you earn, it's about how money works. Understanding financial statements, assets, and liabilities, the things
Yeah.
that they don't really teach you in school.
That's something I've always thought was strange. We learn all these subjects in school, but like managing money, which everyone has to do,
Right.
it's just kind of left out.
Yeah.
So what did Rich Dad see as like the biggest difference maker when it comes to actually building wealth?
Well, he really believed in focusing on getting assets, things that put money in your pocket,
Uh-huh.
rather than liabilities, which take money out of your pocket.
Okay.
And this is where things get really interesting because Rich Dad doesn't see a house as an asset,
Really?
which goes against what a lot of people think.
Wait a minute. Hold on. How can a house, which is probably the biggest thing most people ever buy,
Right.
not be an asset?
Well, it's a common perception, right?
Yeah.
But think about it. While a house can go up in value over time if you have to pay a mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and you're always fixing things up,
Uh-huh.
is it really putting money in your pocket every month?
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
So if a house isn't always an asset, what are some things that Rich Dad would consider assets?
He would say things like rental properties that create passive income stocks that pay you dividends or businesses that are making a profit.
Right.
These assets work for you even when you're sleeping. Essentially, you're building wealth without having to constantly work for it.
So it's about making money without being tied to a job or like trading your time for money.
Exactly.
This leads us to another big idea from the book, The Rat Race.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that is exactly?
Sure. The rat race is that cycle that a lot of people get trapped in. They work hard, they earn money, but they're always struggling to get ahead.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like you're on this treadmill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're running faster and faster, but you're not really going anywhere financially.
Right.
You're stuck trading your time for money, often just to pay for more liabilities.
Wow. That is so relatable.
Right.
I think we've all felt stuck in that cycle at some point.
I agree.
So to break free from the rat race, what does Rich Dad say we should focus on?
Well, he stresses building a strong financial foundation,
Okay.
which starts with financial literacy.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's about strategically buying assets that generate income
Okay.
so you can eventually escape the need to constantly work for money.
So it's not just about working harder.
Right.
It's about working smarter and making your money work for you. But Rich Dad doesn't just talk about money strategies, does he? He also talks about mindset.
Oh, absolutely. He believed that your mindset was crucial for financial success.
Mm.
He talks about developing a rich mindset, which means seeing challenges as opportunities, always learning and growing, and not being afraid to take risks.
Mm-hmm.
It's about having that entrepreneurial spirit and looking for ways to create wealth instead of just waiting for it to happen.
So it's not just about understanding money, but also about thinking about money and opportunity in a certain way.
Right.
That's a really fascinating concept.
Yeah.
Do you think that anyone can develop this rich mindset, or are some people just born with it?
That's a really great question, and it leads us into one of the most interesting parts of the book. It's complex, you know?
Mhm.
While some people might seem to naturally have that rich mindset, I think it's something you can learn.
Mm.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad encourages readers to like challenge what they believe about money, embrace lifelong learning, and get out of their comfort zones. All those things help you develop a more entrepreneurial and financially savvy mindset.
So it's not about being born with a certain personality. It's about choosing to have a mindset that supports financial growth. Now, Rich Dad also talks about corporations, right? He
Yes.
seems to believe they're super important for building wealth. But honestly, that part always went over my head.
Yeah, it's definitely an area that you have to really dive into. But the main idea is that Rich Dad saw corporations as powerful tools for building and protecting wealth.
Okay.
He argued that understanding tax laws and using corporate structures to your advantage was a key part of being financially intelligent.
So it's not just about making money. It's about keeping it and making it work even harder for you.
Exactly.
Can you give us like a simple example of how corporations can help someone financially?
Sure. Imagine you own a rental property.
Right.
By setting up a corporation to own that property, you might be able to deduct expenses like mortgage interest depreciation, even property taxes.
Mm.
This could lower your overall taxes and boost your profits.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like creating this separate entity that operates by different rules and gives you certain benefits.
Fair.
It sounds like something worth looking into if you're serious about building wealth.
Absolutely. Understanding the legal and financial parts of incorporating is a smart investment.
Right. Another thing that struck me about Rich Dad's advice was how much he stressed learning valuable skills, not just for a job, but for life.
Yes.
He wasn't just focused on traditional education.
Right. He wanted people to build skills that would lead to financial success. Things like sales, marketing, negotiating, investing, even understanding people and psychology.
Interesting.
He saw these skills as tools that give you power to create your own opportunities instead of just waiting for them.
So it's not just about getting a degree. It's about having the knowledge and skills to be successful in the financial world and create your own opportunities. That's really empowering. This whole conversation reminds me of a time when I took a big risk, stepped outside my comfort zone, really learned about embracing failure.
I always love to hear about personal experiences related to these concepts. What happened?
Well, a few years ago, I had this crazy idea for a side business.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone told me it wouldn't work. It was too risky. And honestly, a part of me was terrified.
Yeah.
But something told me I had to try.
Wow.
So I went for it, invested some money, and put a lot of time into it.
Hmm.
In the end, it didn't become the huge success I'd hoped for, but the experience was so valuable.
Yeah.
I learned so much about running a business, marketing, and most importantly about myself and how I could overcome fear and keep going.
That's a perfect example of what Rich Dad meant by embracing failure. It's not about avoiding mistakes. It's about learning from them and using them for future success.
Exactly. And that's what I love about Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
It encourages you to challenge yourself, take smart risks, and not let fear hold you back.
That ability to handle fear and doubt is so important for financial progress. It's easy to get stuck afraid to do anything because you might lose money or mess up. Rich Dad believed in understanding those feelings but not letting them control you.
Right.
You know? He thought you should face your fears and use them as fuel to grow and learn.
It's like they say, feel the fear and do it anyway. But in the world of money, it's about taking calculated risks, knowing you might have setbacks, and using those experiences to get better.
That resilience is what separates people who are successful with money from those who stay stuck in the rat race.
Right.
It's about having the courage to keep learning, adapting, and moving forward, even when things are tough.
Now, Rich Dad Poor Dad has been praised by some and criticized by others. Some people say his advice is too simple and doesn't show how complex the financial world really is. What are your thoughts on that?
It's true that the book keeps things pretty simple,
Mm.
and some of Rich Dad's strategies might need more research and adjusting to fit your situation, but I still think the main message of the book is really valuable.
Mm.
It makes you think about money in a new way, to take control of your finances and develop a mindset that helps you build wealth.
I agree. It's not about following every single piece of advice, but using the book to start thinking critically about your own beliefs and strategies about money.
Exactly. Rich Dad, Poor Dad makes you look at yourself and question the traditional money advice you've been given.
Speaking of questioning traditional advice, one of the most controversial parts of the book is how Rich Dad sees homeownership. He doesn't see it as the big financial goal that many people do.
Right, remember his definition of an asset? Something that puts money in your pocket.
Yeah.
He says that for a lot of people, A house ends up being a liability because of all the costs that come with it.
Hmm.
He wants readers to really think about what it means financially to own a home and not just buy into the pressure to own one.
That's a bold statement, especially when owning a home is often seen as a sign of success and stability.
Mm.
I think this is a good place to move into another important idea from the book.
Yeah, it really comes down to being aware of your finances and making choices that fit your own goals, not just what society tells you. Rich Dad Poor Dad really pushes readers to examine what they believe about money and make a plan that works for them.
And sometimes that means doing something different, which can be scary. One thing I like about this book is it doesn't pretend that becoming financially free will be easy. Rich Dad knows that fear and doubt can really hold you back.
Absolutely. He said that getting over those inner obstacles is just as important as learning financial strategies. He believed in understanding your fears but not letting them stop you. It's about taking calculated risks and accepting that you'll have some setbacks along the way.
So it's about building that resilience, knowing you won't always get it right, and using those experiences to learn.
Exactly. It's that ability to bounce back, learn from mistakes, and keep going that ultimately leads to success with money. Rich Dad, Poor Dad isn't just about tactics, it's about having a strong financial mindset.
It's about having the right mindset and the right strategies working together. Before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more important idea from the book. Financial education is an ongoing process.
That's so important. Rich Dad said that financial literacy is something you work on your whole life. It's not about reading one book or taking one course and then you're a financial expert. It's about constantly learning, adapting, and updating your strategies as the financial world changes.
So it's about staying curious, staying informed, and always looking for new knowledge and opportunities to improve your understanding of money.
Precisely. And the good news is there are so many resources available today to help people with their finances, podcasts, books, online courses, communities. There's a ton of information out there. It's like having a whole team of financial mentors at their fingertips.
It is empowering to know we have access to so much information and support. As we wrap up our deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what's the one big thing you hope listeners take away from our conversation?
I think the most important thing is that anyone can achieve financial freedom if they're willing to work for it. It's about learning about money, developing a growth mindset, and taking control of your financial future. It's not a quick fix, but a journey of learning and growing.
It's about challenging the way we usually think about things, questioning what we believe, and making a financial plan that matches our own goals and values.
Exactly. And remember, even small steps can make a big difference over time. Whether it's reading an article about money making a budget or just talking to someone about your financial goals, the important thing is to start taking action.
This deep dive has been so insightful, and I hope it's inspired our listeners to think differently about their relationship with money and take charge of their financial future. If you're looking for a book that challenges the usual way of doing things and encourages you to think outside the box when it comes to personal finance, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is worth checking out.
It's a book that gets people talking, challenges what they believe, and ultimately helps them take control of their finances.
That's all for this deep dive. We'll catch you on our next adventure into the